Hello and welcome to this Thursday's morning market briefing. We've got lots to talk about, but firstly, Xi Jinping hails deep friendship with Vladimir Putin as leaders meet in Beijing. As well as that, Jim Jordan does lose his second vote to become the US House Speaker. So some significant news coming out today. As well as that, we've got lots happening on the charts also, which we'll come to near the end, as well as lots happening on the economic calendar, with most importantly, Jerome Powell's speech coming out today. And obviously that's very, very important because it helps shape US monetary policy, as he is such a key figure within the Fed. But as I said, there's lots to talk about. Make sure to subscribe as we get straight into it. So firstly, to talk about, of course, is Xi Jinping. Now, China's president, Xi Jinping, lauded the record high trade with Russia and stresses deep friendship with Vladimir Putin. This has kind of been the topic much discussed following Russia's invasion into Ukraine, where obviously we did kind of see that those ties between Russia and China become far more embedded as Russia became faced with Western sanctions hurting the Russian economy and kind of pushing Russia away from any geopolitical connections it might have with the West. And as a result, what's formed, is that divide, the stronger divide between the West and these more Eastern powers, and therefore those strengths and ties have strengthened between China and Russia, where of course trade did rise as a result of Russia not being able to trade with their strongest trading partners, that being the EU. Now this came following the two leaders meeting in Beijing to reaffirm the partnership, which has grown closer since the beginning of Russia's invasion into Ukraine. And this is what I was just talking about, basically, with Xi telling Putin bilateral trade annually had reached 200 billion, which is a historic high, obviously, so significant levels of trade, and this is despite Russia's invasion, which they're currently engaged in, and the Chinese economic issues which obviously they're facing as well. Now Xi did not mention the no limits partnership first used to describe the relationship at Putin's last meeting when he did come to Beijing in February 2022, so just before they invaded Ukraine, nor did he mention his warning to Putin not to use nukes in Ukraine, as this was obviously made clear by Xi Jinping to avoid that kind of wide-scale escalation which would likely occur if nukes were used in some way or form. Now Putin commented on the meeting, saying confidential topics were discussed over a cup of tea, with the meeting however having few tangible results. Now Putin didn't say the few tangible results bit, but it was certainly noticed by those watching and following the meeting that few tangible results were actually discovered for Moscow, and more so it was a discussion and a representation of their strengthening ties, with no mention of Putin, mention by Putin of the power of Siberia 2 pipeline plan, which would go east. And this is obviously following the EU and Britain cancelling any of its trade in the gas markets and oil markets with Russia, as well as sanctioning its products. As a result, Russia's market with Europe did somewhat collapse, with obviously the Nord Stream pipeline being destroyed, and as a result Russia's now looking for other areas they can export their natural resources to, because obviously they are natural resource rich, with no mention by with this meeting just coming as well after the EU's chief diplomat Josep Borrell, which did say China's failure to condemn the Ukraine invasion is souring its image in Europe. And China's image within the entire Western sphere really is souring, especially with US weakening relations around Taiwan, any trade in those areas, and kind of these strengthening ties between these two Eastern nations has also pushed the US further away from allowing that investment to take place in China, where obviously now people are starting to see it as a geopolitical risk, as obviously we had that kind of, Chinese spy balloon being shot down, I believe last year, or it may have been earlier this year. And the two nations are now converging towards a pro-Palestine stance, as fears are mounting that relations are becoming too close with China's trade, propping up Russia's invasion. So this is really the key worry for the West, that these two nations and these two leaders do end up becoming embedded with their ties, and strengthening their kind of geopolitical stances as one, in a similar way to NATO might be considered with the EU, Britain and the USA. Now, with Russia increasingly becoming accustomed to being a junior partner in the economic relationship after China did throw, the Kremlin that economic lifeline following the sanctions. This is what we saw with China, offering them up greater levels of trade. And, if Russia really didn't have China as an economic partner that did end up, providing them with that necessary economic demand to sell their goods, then it's likely, that Russia would be in a far worse position today, and, possibly even unlikely to continue its invasion of Ukraine. With the two nations now focusing on ways to reduce their reliance on the dollar and focusing more on how to use the yuan. And that's unsurprising to us, especially, with Putin, having those issues with, Western sanctions, and China also, kind of now moving a bit away from US investment, as investment limits are placed on US companies that want to work in China. But that's all to talk about really for, Xi Jinping. Definitely keep your eyes on this topic, as it's key to understand the geopolitics as well as, trade relations and that sort of thing. But next to talk about, of course, is Jim Jordan. Now, Jim Jordan is someone that we did speak about yesterday. And he essentially did go for, the US House Speaker position, as, he is kind of the front leading person in relation to being on the more pro-Trump side of the Republicans. Now, he did fail to win the House Speaker role yesterday. However, he did seem determined still to continue his persistent, drive to become US House Speaker. And today he did lose that second vote to become US House Speaker, so once again losing. Now, Jim Jordan lost his second vote for the House of Representatives Speaker position yesterday, and this came after 22 members of his party rejected his pro-Trump image. Now, we know that, kind of Jim Jordan has been focusing more so on, the more pro-Trump hardliner positions and representing those views, with Donald Trump responding to Jim Jordan's kind of message and views and kind of attempt to become the US House Speaker in a very positive light, with Trump describing him as a very good man and one that does represent great political values, and this is kind of his key ally within the kind of US House Speaker kind of primary, this kind of election process to become House Speaker. But obviously this will sour any relations with the more moderate Republicans within the House, which of course, Jim Jordan will require some of them to vote in his name to become Speaker. With this, of course, coming in worse than, Tuesday's vote. So the last vote that we spoke about yesterday, when 20 voted against him in the House of Representatives, as, this is, whilst Jim Jordan does represent more of the pro-Trump side, there are still many kind of Republicans within the House of Representatives which do represent more moderate views, possibly more views which are more aligned maybe with the Democrat Party, or at least more that don't want to be associated with the anti-establishment views that someone like Jim Jordan or Donald Trump might kind of bring, and therefore it's going to be a hard win to get those on his side. And obviously, if you're actually losing votes as you progressively go for more and more votes to become US House Speaker, then it's kind of, souring your image as an actual potential candidate to be the US House Speaker. And obviously this has cast further doubt on the notion that anyone will actually be able to unite the Republicans in the House of Representatives and therefore, have enough to win the vote and end the policy stalemate. Because, of course, until a US House Speaker is elected, essentially, the Congress is paralysed as no policy can pass through, the House of Representatives. And so, although we're not experiencing a government shutdown through, what Kevin McCarthy essentially prevented temporarily, we still are experiencing that policy paralysis as a result of having no US House Speaker, and therefore members of Congress really aren't able to do their jobs. And especially as we're encountering such kind of interesting times, especially geopolitically, US congressmen and women aren't really able to carry out their necessary roles. And this all obviously comes following Kevin McCarthy's ousting, which we spoke about when it first happened, from his leadership position in the House of Representatives. And then obviously, this did form that leadership vacuum within the Capitol Hill. And obviously, as we'd spoken about last week, Steve Scalise, the more moderate kind of Republican candidate, did go for this position as well, but did lose his first vote. And since then, he hasn't, kind of gone for another ballot run. But we may see some more from him in the future. With no speaker elected, the time really is running out to avert that national government shutdown, and under mounting pressure to underwrite more aid to Israel and Ukraine, this is obviously being restricted, because obviously we do have the conflicts taking place in Israel at the moment, as well as in Ukraine, where many congressmen and women are calling for more aid to these nations, or at least amendments to it, to the aid. And so, these are pressing matters which are obviously time sensitive, and they're not able to be acted upon until there's a US House Speaker. And especially in the case of, preventing a government shutdown, as a federal budget will need to be passed in mid-November. And, if no House Speaker is elected by that time, we have a great potential for a government shutdown, with moderate Republicans and Democrats ruling out Jordan, calling him an extremist extraordinaire, and this obviously causes the stalemate, as Republicans only have a razor-thin majority within, the House of Representatives. And so, Jim Jordan really can't win without either bringing over many, more moderate Republicans, or in fact even going across the aisle and bringing over some Democrats to vote for him as well. And obviously these are two very difficult tasks, as there is not much of a majority which the Republicans hold. Now, Jordan on Tuesday did say he was willing to endure 7 rounds of voting in order to become Speaker, as after all, it did take 15 rounds of voting to elect McCarthy in January, with other Republicans suggesting Jordan should step aside. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, so definitely keep your eyes on it. Obviously, this will be affecting US indices greatly, as this is something that matters greatly to whether a US government budget is passed or whether a shutdown takes place. And obviously, a shutdown will have detrimental effects on the US economy, so definitely keep your eyes open for that. But of course, next to talk about is the charts, where firstly to talk about, of course, is US indices. Now, we had spoken about how US indices had punched up into this more resistant representative area of liquidity, and kind of wicked into there twice, as we can see, gaining liquidity to go on the short move. And since there, from that position, we have moved to the downside, punching into this area of liquidity that we've highlighted earlier on. And this was an area which obviously has been used as support and resistance prior, so it's definitely a significant area. So it'll be interesting to see where US indices can really go from here, considering all the news coming out at the moment, and especially with Jerome Powell's speech today, which will obviously have a great impact on US markets, as his rhetoric today will very much shape the way we perceive monetary policy going on until the end of this year at least. So definitely keep your eyes and ears open for that, as it will have a very important impact on the US indices. And we've seen US indices really see that decline today, likely following Jim Jordan's loss in the House of Representatives. So definitely keep your eyes on that. But next to talk about, of course, is the dollar, which despite the fact that we were kind of highlighting a possible head and shoulders pattern taking place on the charts, we did also highlight the fact that there was a strong area of liquidity around this 61.8% Fibonacci mark, which we did highlight as an area where it was likely that price would come down and into before possibly moving higher and maybe even reaching the Fibonacci extension where prior highs had been made on the dollar. And from that area that we had highlighted, we have seen movement from that area with a significant bullish move from that area, despite the overwhelming head and shoulders pattern. That said, we still haven't broken above this prior shoulder. Once we do, we'll know that kind of price action pattern is invalid. However, until then, we still are kind of keeping our eyes on the possibility of it still going short once more. However, following tapping into this area of liquidity, it does seem that there's enough buy side pressure to possibly move higher. Obviously, this will be greatly impacted by Jerome Powell's speech today, so definitely keep your eyes on that, as with US indices. Next to talk about, of course, so staying on the topic of the dollar, is Euro USD, which obviously mirrors the dollar a lot. And in the ways that the dollar went up today, euro went down. So it did move in that retracement kind of period up and into this Fibonacci mark, where we had highlighted the 61.8% Fibonacci area, similar to the dollar. And from that position, we have gone short once again. So definitely keep your eyes on Euro USD, as yesterday we had ECB President Lagarde's speech, and now today we have Jerome Powell's speech. So two very influential figures in relation to monetary policy for Euro USD. But next to talk about, of course, is USD JPY, which now has broken above the most recent high, because as we have spoken about, Euro USD JPY did break above and out of this bullish flag, moving above and out of that area and towards this area of liquidity. However, it did provide enough resistance for it to form, a cup and handle pattern before, liquidity was gained from this 61.8% Fibonacci mark. And now from that area, it's broken above its recent highs and is now moving higher. So it'd be interesting to see whether it can fully break above this area of resistance and liquidity and possibly reach that minus 27.2 Fibonacci extension area. So definitely keep your eyes on USD JPY. Next to talk about, though, of course, is gold, which is in a very, very interesting position, as these geopolitical tensions within Gaza continue to mount, and obviously Xi Jinping's meeting yesterday obviously will also have played into this, with more and more geopolitical tensions on the rise. People are once more fearing an escalation of this conflict in some way, which may in fact have a detrimental impact on the dollar, on US indices, and so people are looking to gold as a safe haven asset to kind of protect their money and their wealth essentially in these times of crisis. And this is why we've kind of seen this move from 1822 before the conflicts in Gaza to now 1956, and all the way up to 1960, and it did move up into this area of liquidity, as well as tapping this minus 27.2 Fibonacci extension area. So definitely there is strong buy side pressure, because it did come down in a retracement, as we spoke about yesterday, tapping into this area of liquidity and tapping that 38.2% Fibonacci mark before continuing to move higher in line with geopolitical tensions, and therefore now it's reached this area of liquidity and Fibonacci extension. It does seem that some of those bullish moves are now being relieved, those buys are being sold off. So definitely keep your eyes on gold as we look to see how the gold market might shape up. Obviously, we could highlight this area here of that prior high as now a possible area for where price may now come back down to before moving higher possibly. What might actually form interestingly, is, you know, kind of an upward moving channel, as we did see here, as, you know, kind of price volatility does slow down slightly. However, you know, we're likely to still maintain this bullish pressure as geopolitical tensions mount. So definitely keep your eyes on gold. Next to talk about, though, of course, is US Treasury yields, which have reached monumental highs to date, record highs, 7-year highs, and at the moment we're looking at the US 3-year yield, and it has broken above those prior highs, reaching levels of 5.046 percentage points. So really significant yields on US Treasuries, breaking those prior highs, and also representing, you know, the sell-off in US Treasuries. But that's all to talk about for Treasuries. Next to talk about is Brent crude oil, which we did highlight as, you know, kind of an asset which did have that bullish potential after tapping that 38.2% Fibonacci mark, and kind of nearing this area of liquidity and resistance which it had once tested before retracing. And we did say, you know, there was definitely potential to now move higher as it had gained that liquidity, and that's what we did see yesterday. It broke above those prior areas before relieving the, you know, the bullish performance, the bullish buys at that minus 27.2% Fibonacci extension area, and since then it's kind of, you know, returned back to this prior high. So it'll be interesting to see where it can go from there, because obviously it hasn't had any 4-hour body candles really close below those prior highs. So it'll be interesting to see where oil can go from there. Maybe we're also forming another channel like on gold, with kind of these wicks coming down, forming that kind of long-term, well, not long-term, but kind of channel representing the geopolitical tensions, as obviously oil has been greatly influenced by the conflict in Gaza. So definitely keep your eyes on that. But finally, to talk about, of course, is the economic calendar, where we have lots of data and news coming out today. So firstly, we have Japanese balance of trade figures, so definitely keep your eyes on that. As well as that, we have, you know, Aussie unemployment figures, as well as employment figures, Chinese house price index year-on-year figure, as well as Swiss balance of trade figures coming out today, as well as French business confidence obviously coming out today as well. So obviously we understand that at the moment there's quite little business confidence in, you know, kind of Europe, especially within Germany, where there's issues around the manufacturing sector and automobile industries. So definitely keep your eyes on any, you know, European, EU kind of business confidence and that sort of thing, as well as, you know, US continuing jobless claims, as well as many Fed official speeches. But most importantly, we have Fed Chair Jerome Powell's speech today, which obviously will have a monumental effect on, you know, US monetary policy, and therefore the way that the dollar, US indices, gold will move today. And they'll move very much based on whatever Fed, you know, the Fed chair Jerome Powell does say. So definitely keep your eyes on that. That's a real key one to note, as well as, you know, of course, Aussie balance of trade. But that's all to talk about on the articles, on the charts, and on the economic calendar. Lots of stuff covered. I hope you have a great trading day, but that's all from us at Wildwood Capital. See you later. Bye.